Our marriage is in a bad way. It was a typical Thursday night that was about to become anything but. My wife Anna and I were working together in the kitchen as we often do when cooking dinner. She was chopping onions while I was dicing cheese and ham for our omelet when she said something that caught my attention. "Brad, we've been married for almost 7 years, and we've always been honest with each other, haven't we?" I stopped cutting the ham and replied, "Of course." We agreed it was one of the most important parts of our relationship before we said yes to each other. She turned away from the counter and looked at me thoughtfully. I suddenly felt a rush of adrenaline. "You met someone?" I asked, trying to keep my voice calm. "You've met someone?" I asked, even though I was already pretty sure of the answer. "It's a guy at work, a really nice guy. I had lunch with him. I'm guessing there's more to the story, so please go on. You know they cost a lot of money, but I couldn't look at them, so I destroyed them. I think I destroyed you and our marriage too." That's when I went over to where our marriage certificate was lying, picked it up, and had a look at it. It's very simple. It said that Anna Stanford and Brad Connolly were joined in holy matrimony on June 12, 2005, and it was witnessed by my maid of honor and your best man. But as I looked at it, it all came back to me. We stood in front of we promised to be there for each other, to stick by each other through thick and thin. I realized that I can't share myself with anyone but you. I can't share what I don't own. That's what I told Stan when he came to get me. "Thanks for telling me. You've given me a lot to think about. What do you think? We'll get through this and everything will be okay." "I don't know, Anna. I hope so. But right now I don't know. You almost killed me last night. I've never been in so much pain in my life. I felt so betrayed, so alone, so helpless. I told Stan I'd go with him, and I can't break my word. At least now I know his name. You can easily break the sacred vows you made to me 7 years ago, but you can't break your promise to Stan. Is that true? I'm sorry, Brad. I don't want to hurt you, but I have to do this for me. Please try to understand." I realized immediately that I had lost her, but my pain. I had an idea. I thought that if I gave her a parting shot, it might make her think about what her actions would do to us. I stood up and turned toward the basement door. "Wait here. I'll show you something, then I'll get out of your way so you can get ready to go." I went down to the basement and found the Halloween props I was looking for. I opened our wall safe, took out a piece of paper, got a hammer and some nails, and took them into the kitchen. My wife looked at me like I'd lost my mind when she saw me dragging the small wooden coffin we were using as Halloween decorations up the stairs. What was that for? It rang a few times and the caller ID told me it was Anna, so I ignored it. I didn't want to hear any more excuses for her turning her back on what I'd always thought was a beautiful marriage. I slept fitfully, with thoughts of Anna screaming in bed while nice guy Stan made love to her. I was sure that before the weekend was over, he would learn all of Anna's little secrets. She has a very sensitive spot behind her knees that makes her insanely hot when you kiss there. She loves to have her feet massaged. I was always so sure that these secrets were just. I was a fool to think I could hold her forever. I got up early, took a shower, put the same clothes back on, and went to the nearest Denny's for coffee and toast. That was it. I tried not to think about what Anna was doing at the moment, but I couldn't shake it off. Anna not only kept her job, but she was paid a pretty substantial amount of money to promise not to sue the company she worked for after that. For about 6 months, because we discovered that we were about to become parents. Of course, as soon as Anna carried me up the stairs and into our bed that day, I guess it's understandable. Subscribe to my channel. Thank you. Are you telling me that you met a really nice guy at work that you had lunch with, and you like him? Maybe really like him? A guilty expression flashed across her face and she turned away from me and nodded her head. She nodded and said quietly, "Yes." I suddenly didn't want an omelet or anything at all. In fact, I was starting to feel nauseous, but I had to keep talking. I threw the knife on the cutting board and put both hands on the table to keep from falling over. "How far did things go between you and this really nice guy?" I could tell there was a lot of tension in my voice, and she retreated to the counter. "She just had lunch with him. Every day for a few weeks, and you had dinner with him last week when you had that late-night business meeting. Did you two hold hands, kiss, or do any heavy petting?" Her face went pale and she nodded again. "We kissed and I had this disgusting smile on my face, and I was close to choking on it." "Did you have sex with him?" "I just wanted to have a minute of fun. We've been together a long time, and before we're done, I want to show you something." I placed the small wooden coffin on the kitchen table and put the ham and cheese I was cutting on the floor. "It's a coffin. Well, a cheap Halloween prop, but it's still a coffin. Here's the lid that goes on the coffin. This is a hammer, and these are nails. When I showed her the hammer, she started to get nervous. I then took out a piece of paper from the safe and showed her our marriage license. I opened the lid of the casket and put our certificate in there, and put the lid back on the casket. Brad, what are you doing? Put our marriage license back where you found it. Why, Anna, it doesn't mean anything anymore, does it? It's where it belongs, in the coffin, ready for burial. She started crying again. What are you talking about, Brad? It's proof that we're married. You've heard the expression about something being the final nail in the coffin lid. It's the nail that seals it for all eternity and irrevocably completes the fate of whoever or whatever is inside. Our marriage is in that coffin, so when you walk out that door in the morning to go to Las Vegas with that really nice guy Stan, that last nail will be hammered into the coffin and our marriage will be over. That's not what you mean, Brad. You can't throw us away over one indiscretion. I'm not throwing us away, Anna. You are. I loved you with every fiber of my being. You are the most beautiful, sexiest woman I have ever known. It has been an honor and a joy to have you as my wife for the past few years. No, I'm not the one. If I could, I'd climb into that coffin with the proof of our marriage and be buried with it. To satisfy my curiosity and drive your dagger deeper into my heart, I have to ask if I'll find some linen you bought just for this occasion in the luggage you're packing to take. While we were having coffee in the kitchen, I asked her what made her change her mind last night. She was so sure she should go with Stan. What changed her mind? She looked at me over her cup, her dark eyes red and puffy. She said, "You buried our marriage." I didn't understand. I thought she was talking about the marriage license, which she had put in an awful coffin and nailed shut after I left. I went upstairs, but all I could think about was our marriage certificate in that dark, horrible place. Our marriage was. You buried it. He was in a place with no air, no light, and he couldn't get out. Then I started thinking about all the great things that witnessing gave us. It meant everything to me. We were a team, so happy when we were together. I thought about how happy you always made me. I must have dozed off because I had this dream where I was in this coffin in this dark place and I felt like I was suffocating. She was also wearing a pair of fluffy bunny slippers I had bought for her as a joke one Christmas. I asked her, "Anna, what are you doing? Where's Stan?" She shook her head negatively and said, "I can't share what I don't own." I told him, Brad, that's what I told him. He asked why I wasn't ready to go to Las Vegas with him. I told him again that I couldn't share. What I didn't own, he said. What does that mean? I told him I would never go anywhere with him, never talk to him again because I don't have the body he wanted so badly. That body belongs only to my husband and never to anyone else. I can't share what I don't own. Only my husband owns every inch of me, and I will never share it with anyone else. She continued to slowly creep toward me down the stairs. Brad called. He called me a fool and a tease and said I was a bad influence on him. He said he was going to tell everyone at work that I was a cheater and get me fired. I told him he couldn't do that because I had already quit. Leave nail clippings on the carpet, and lots of other little negative things that made you leave me. She looked shocked. I've never said anything bad about you, Brad, but not enough to stop you from going away with him for a sex-filled weekend. You love me, but apparently not enough to stay away from him. Have you not loved me at all lately? I don't know. I'm confused, so you jump into the arms of a really nice man who knows you're married. I'm married, but I don't care. I just want to clarify the circumstances so you don't get confused. A few days and nights in Vegas with him in his arms and in his bed, to clarify everything you feel about me and him, to let him take possession of your body, which by the way you promised exclusively to me years ago, let him make love to you until you can't stand up. She did have a few tears rolling down her face. I'm on the pill, Brad, so I don't need protection. Did your boyfriend get tested for STDs recently? He's not like that, Brad. He was so angry that his tires squealed for a whole block as he drove away. She finally made it to the landing, wrapped her arms around my ankles and hugged my legs. She said she was so embarrassed. I hurt the only man in the world who had proven over and over again how much he loved me and would do anything for me. I violated the sacred trust of the man in whom my whole life lies. I am so sorry. She cried. She held me like that for what seemed like an eternity, but it was only a few minutes. I was stunned. I was too stunned to move. The woman who was my life, who I worshipped with every breath, was the one who had hurt me. She was my alpha and omega, my beginning. And then, just like that, it was all over. My heart was broken, Half a day later, she was still sobbing and hugging my legs. I wanted to take her in my arms and tell her how much I loved her and that we would get through this terrible time. But I couldn't move. All the events of the last 15 hours ran through my mind. I believed she hadn't consummated her relationship with Stan, but I still felt betrayed. As a married woman, I don't have lunches and dinners with another man. I don't share passionate kisses with another man. And I don't take or plan AAC with a lover in Las Vegas. She came to her senses before any real damage was done, but she betrayed me nonetheless. I stood looking at the woman who had been my world until last night, and it was obvious that she was in as much pain as I was. Our marriage we were teetering on the edge of a very dark abyss, and I wondered if we had the strength to keep going forward so we didn't fall off the edge. I bent down and lifted Anna to her feet, and we held each other until the bee subsided. Then I let her go and made some coffee. "Thank you, Brad," she whispered. "Oh, Brad," she said. "I think I wrecked your car when I was just pulling up to the house," she said. "Yeah, I heard that. We'll talk about that too." I helped her down the stairs and into the kitchen while we were having coffee. It was so real that it woke me up, and I realized that I had to somehow take the lid off the coffin and bring our marriage back to where I could breathe. She laughed lightly. "I never realized how well you hid your tools. It took me a while to find the crowbar and another half hour to drag the casket into the bedroom and lift the lid enough to get our certificate out. It took me at least an hour to find the crowbar and another half hour to drag the casket into the bedroom and lift the lid just enough to get our certificate out. I felt obsessed. I had to get it out before you put the last nail in the coffin." "When did you decide not to go with Stan?" She giggled again, and the sound warmed my soul. It lasted about 2 seconds. I walked out the door and realized I could never go with Stan or anyone else. I felt so stupid and ashamed. How could I treat the only man I had ever loved the way I treated you? I tried calling you over and over again, but you wouldn't pick up. Then I started texting you, but that didn't work either. That after you walk out that door to be with Stan tomorrow, it will no longer be true. She was starting to lose her mind. "Brad, you don't know that. I don't know that. Anna, I know what you're thinking, but I do know this. Your solution is to go away with Stan. My decision is to divorce you. Sit down and listen for a minute. Our marriage license is in the coffin where it belongs." I took a nail and put it on the corner of the coffin lid. I drove it through the lid and into the coffin. The sound was so loud in this small room that it startled Anna and she jumped up. "This is the first nail. It represents the time you went to lunch and dinner with. Stan is a really nice guy." I took another nail and put it on the next corner. Ba. This is the second nail. It represents the passionate kisses you shared with Stan. Anna's eyes were big, and her mouth started to quiver as she looked at me. I hit the lid in the fourth and final corner of the coffin with a hammer. "That's the fourth nail, Anna. He hasn't been with a woman in over 2 years, but I'll bet you $1 million he has. He goes after women, Anna. He sees a beautiful married woman, and he wants her. It's the perfect game for guys like him. He'd steal a beautiful married woman in a heartbeat and make love to her, make the pathetic husband a cuckold. Old. If I'm right and he hasn't been tested, you may find out that what happens in Vegas may not stay in Vegas. Something may follow you home in a very unpleasant way. Is this nice guy your boss? No, he's the boss of my boss. So you're really selling out, aren't you? There's no point in climbing the corporate ladder when you can use your... I don't know what I'm doing, Brad, but I want to find out. Your rudeness isn't helping. I'm not going to help you go off with another man for a hot weekend in Vegas. Anna, let me ask you something. If I beg you not to leave and get on my knees and beg you to stay here with me, will you do it?" She dropped her eyes to the floor. She shook her head. "I can't, Brad. I seem to be trapped in some miserable vortex, seeing my wife, the one woman I thought would be with me forever, holding hands with Stan on the airplane, kissing him in the cab and hurrying through check-in so they could get to their room and start making love. I've heard people describe the level of pain they felt when they were cheated on, but I never realized how completely incapacitating it was. I waited until 8. I called my office to let my assistant know I'd be out for a few hours. She asked if I felt bad and I said I did, but hopefully I'd be back to my old self by Monday. I also noticed that I had at least a dozen missed calls and another dozen text messages from Anna. I didn't delete them, but I didn't read them either. The last text and call came at 7:45 and nothing after that, so I figured she'd stop trying to contact me when she left to be with Stan. I refused to call him a good guy, since he was as far from that as possible. I knew I would find a way to get back at him when the time came. I waited until 10. I had 30 minutes to go home and get what I needed to start my new life as a single man. Anna didn't answer. She just continued to cry quietly. But the look on her face told me the answer. I'm leaving right now. I don't want to be. I'm here to see you through your final act of betrayal. I'll go back and get everything I need to get through the next couple of weeks. If you have extra time in Vegas, I'll be in touch. Otherwise, I'll be out of the loop. I'm not sure what you'll be up to, but you might want to think about what items in the house you'd like to keep. I won't be here when you get back, but my lawyer will contact you in a week or two. I grabbed my jacket, walked out the door, got in my car and drove away. I just had the worst night of my life. I felt dead and completely numb. I had no idea where I was going and I didn't care. I just needed to leave. I knew I couldn't hold anything in my stomach, so I found Motel 6 on the opposite side of town from the airport. I didn't want to be tempted to hang out in the departure area, to see what a really nice guy Stan looked like. It didn't matter if he won, or at least I lost my cell phone. She glanced at me quickly and shook her head negatively, which stunned me, and I had to push back. I'm going to sit down now, so you haven't had sex with him yet, but you plan to. A nod from Kurt. I guess I am. He wants me to go away with him for the weekend, and you're going. Can I ask where you two are going? Las Vegas? Sharing a room? I assume he said he booked a room. He's a big spender. He thinks very highly of me. I'm sure he does. When are you leaving tomorrow morning? Wow, you waited until the last second to tell me. I waited before I hurt you because I had to be absolutely sure. I almost laughed, but it sounded more like a stifled sob. That was very thoughtful of you, Anna. Does he know you're married? Yes, he does. I always wear wedding rings. Do me a favor, don't wear them when you're in his bed in Las Vegas. Brad, I talk about you all the time when I'm with him. Great. I'm sure you've had lots of great things to tell him about me. Like I'm as good a guy as he is, but I'm a little boring in bed. A tiny smile touched the corners of her mouth. Anything you say, darling. And she crossed herself, took my hand, and led me up the stairs to our room. For several months, things went on as they were. No matter how hard I tried, there were times when that night flashed through my mind, and I became sullen. Anna seemed to sense when those moments happened, and she filled me with love, crowding out all other thoughts. She did quit her job, and when her bosses in HR wanted to know why, she told them she'd done it because she was embarrassed, but she needed to get rid of that feeling. As it turned out, the head of HR told her that there had been 3 harassment complaints against Stan, who was a really nice guy, before that. To make a long story short, he ended up with no job and no references. On top of it was a piece of paper with the words, "I cannot share things I don't own," written in black felt tip pen. The piece of paper leaning against the coffin had the same message written in the same black felt tip pen. Then came the sound of tires squealing and 2 cars colliding in front of the house. Before I could react, the front doors swung open and a woman screamed, "Brad, where are you? Oh God, please, oh please, Brad. You have to be here so I can tell you how wrong I was, how terribly stupid I was." I heard she ran for the stairs, stumbled and fell halfway down. She was crying hysterically. When she looked up and saw me standing on the top landing, she held out her arms to me and started to crawl up. In all our 7 years of marriage and 2 years of knowing each other before that, I'd never seen her look this bad. She was wearing no makeup, her hair was a mess, her eyes were puffy and red, and she was wearing a Cowtex sweatshirt and gray sweatpants. Much later, when I finally lifted the coffin lid, I needed to get the certificate, so I thought about how I would tell Stan that I never wanted to see him again. I took off all my makeup, put on your old Caltex sweatshirt and sweatpants, and wondered how I would look to Stan. I had already been crying, so my eyes were red and ugly. I wondered how beautiful I would seem to him when he saw me, the real me that you know. You see me all the time and you still love me. You're the most beautiful woman I've ever known, Anna. Even now, you look perfect to me. When I realized I had to do everything in my power to get you back to make you love me again, I hadn't packed much yet, but when I started unpacking, I saw the negligee panties and bras I'd bought for the trip with. Stan and I had another breakdown. Seeing them made me sick to my stomach. They were the final proof of my betrayal, and I had to destroy them. I took a pair of scissors and tore them all up. I figured it was probably in the trash. I guess my little lesson didn't have much effect on Anna. I know lust is a powerful thing, and when you're in its grip, it's hard to be rational. I walked up the stairs to the bedroom, wondering how long it would be before Stan was having sex with my wife on This was once our marriage bed. I had to stop torturing myself like this. As I entered the room, I saw a coffin standing in the middle of the bed. The lid was ajar with a crowbar lying next to it. Someone had probably put a lot of effort into pulling out the nails. Out of curiosity, I looked further and found the marriage certificate I had locked inside it. It was lying between 2 pillows and the headboard of the bed. She didn't even want it. I said aloud, "I'll get that win." I turned to the dresser to get my underwear and socks. There on the table next to the window were 3 beautiful sets of lingerie, cut up and strewn over the prettiest yellow negligee I'd ever seen. It was cut up too. Do you have any idea what it's like to know that the one person in the world you love more than anyone else has betrayed you? The person you've always trusted unconditionally is choosing another man over you. She burst into tears again. "Oh, Brad, I'm so sorry. I was out of my mind. I'll do anything to make it right. I'll do anything to make it right. I'll do anything to make it right. Even die if it helps. It certainly won't. I want you alive and well. I want to trust you again. It won't be as hard as it could be. Like you said, we've always been honest with each other. Last night you told me how you felt, how I thought I felt, and how you thought you felt. So what now, Anna? I didn't sleep well last night, and if you don't mind, I'd like to take you to bed with me. Is it too soon for that? We don't know yet. I don't have to do anything, Brad. I just want to feel you next to me, in your rightful place." Her dark eyes were so pleading, I couldn't refuse. "Okay, Anna, but don't cuddle. I'm still mad at you." As I pulled into the driveway and pushed the button to open the garage door, I saw that Anna's car wasn't there. I suddenly realized what had happened. She had probably gone to meet Stan so she wouldn't have to take a cab. I was really disappointed in myself for trying to think that she might have changed her mind and stayed home. I had to accept that she dumped me. She got a better deal with a guy who will take her. So she's gone to Vegas to spend the weekend with him. You know, the luxury suite and all. So wake up and live your life. You may never find another woman as beautiful as her, but you'll find someone. I didn't believe a word I said. The house was eerily quiet. Looking at it with the dazed eyes of a man with a broken heart, it seemed strange. It had seemed so warm and alive before, but now it seemed cold and lifeless. I went into the kitchen and saw that the cheese and ham I dropped on the floor had been put away, and the coffin was no longer on the table.